I tell you, I was so blessed last Monday night at Clements. We had a graduation for Bridges to Life. Had 49 men in our general population who graduated the class, and listening to the testimonies that they had to share, truly heart-wrenching. Many tears were shed. Um, and interesting, one of the guys was talking about how the web of his crime, and he used the word web, the web of his crime, how it reached out and touched so many people, right? That his crime affected the person with whom the crime was committed against, that family, his family. And it was just a web of a lot of people that were affected by his crime. And then it dawned on me at that point in time that when we realize who we are and realize the light of our Creator within us, when we realize the Spirit that lives within us, when we get connected with that and recognize that, that same web goes out and touches people. That same web of love goes out and touches people. And I reminded them of that the web that you're crying, the people that it touched, the same web of your enlightened heart will touch people as well. And let's focus on that, right? So it's really a beautiful, beautiful ceremony. I think you guys are going to be starting a Bridges to Life at Haven soon, or
July.
in July. Man, it's going to be awesome.
Actually at Gratitude.
At Gratitude?
Mm-hmm.
At Gratitude.
It's going to be Monday night. Thursdays.
If you could get into that, do it. We graduated 49 in general population, and Thursday night we graduated about 22 that were sex offenders and in our G4 population. So a lot of guys are getting touched there, so I was really blessed to be a part of that. So I'm really excited to be back with you ladies tonight. I've missed you guys for the last couple of weeks, but glad to be back. And going to kind of resume where I had personally left off when I was speaking. And what were we talking about? Our life at the movies, right? Our life at the movies and how awesome this life can be that we sit and that we watch, right? Maybe it hadn't been so great thus far, but we'll get up, we'll leave that theater, and we're going to sit in another theater where we create a life that we enjoy, right? And in doing so, we talked about, as alcoholics and addicts, our problem centers in our what? It centers in our mind, right? We do have the physical allergy and all that kind of stuff. Once we get started, we can't stop. But my brain tells me that, you know what, this time it's okay. And we talk about powerlessness and all that kind of stuff, right? You got all are very familiar with that. But let's just talk about in some detail tonight what the ways that our mind kind of tricks us, so that when we become aware of how our mind is tricking us, we can say, you know what, I'm not going to watch this movie. I'm going to get up and I'm going to go and I'm going to create another movie. Because remember, in our movie of life, we are the director, we're the producer, we're the writer, we're the actor. We're solely responsible for our life and how it is created, right? Remember how we talked about that? And I have used that, and I'll talk about it in a little while. I've used that analogy a lot in my life, and something pretty cool happened that I'm going to go into detail with you about how it changed the movie in my life this week, right? But I thought I would let's just go to the book, to the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Anybody else got their book with them other than Stephanie and I? If you would, we're going to read a quick story. The story of Jim, the car salesman, if you guys know that. So we're going to do something a little different. Read a couple of paragraphs starting on page 35. Let's listen carefully to this story, okay? Because we're going to talk about the mind twist that this man had. All right? Let's listen carefully to the story. Go ahead.
Our first example is a friend we shall call Jim. This man has a charming wife and family. He inherited a lucrative automobile agency. He had a commendable World War record. He is a good salesman. Everybody likes him. He is an intelligent man, normal so far as we can see, except for a nervous disposition. He did no drinking until he was 35. In a few years, he became so violent when intoxicated that he had to be committed. On leaving the asylum, he came into contact with us. We told him what we knew of alcoholism and the answer we had found. He made a beginning. His family was reassembled, and he began to work as a salesman for the business he had lost through drinking. All went well for a time, but he failed to enlarge his spiritual life. To his consternation, he found himself drunk half a dozen times in rapid succession. On each of these occasions, we worked with him, reviewing carefully what had happened. He agreed he was a real alcoholic and in a serious condition. He knew he faced another trip to the asylum if he kept on. Moreover, he would lose his family for whom he had a deep affection.
Yet
Yes,
he got drunk again.
Yep.
We asked him to tell us exactly how it happened. This is his story. I came to work on Tuesday morning. I remember I felt irritated that I had to be a salesman for a concern I once owned. I had a few words with the boss, but nothing serious. Then I decided to drive into the country and see one of my prospects for a car. On the way, I felt hungry, so I stopped at a roadside place where they have a bar. I had no intention of drinking. I just thought I would get a sandwich. I also had the notion that I might find a customer for a car at this place, which was familiar, for I had been going to it for years. I had eaten there many times during the months I was sober. I sat down at a table and ordered a sandwich and a glass of milk. Still, no thought of drinking. I ordered another sandwich and decided to have another glass of milk. Suddenly, the thought crossed my mind that if I were to put an ounce of whiskey in my milk, it couldn't hurt me on a full stomach. I ordered a whiskey and poured it into the milk. I vaguely sensed I was not being any too smart, but felt reassured as I was taking the whiskey on a full stomach. The experiment went so well that I ordered another whiskey and poured it into more milk.
Yes.
That didn't seem to bother me, so I tried another. Thus started one more journey to the asylum for Jim. Here was the threat of commitment, the loss of family and position, to say nothing of that intense mental and physical suffering which drinking always caused him. He had much knowledge about himself as an alcoholic, yet all reasons for not drinking were easily pushed aside in favor of the foolish idea that he could take whiskey if only he mixed it with milk.
Whatever the precise definition of the word may be, we call this plan insanity. How can such a lack of proportion of the ability to think straight be called anything else?
Thank you. Has y'all heard that story before? Pretty gross, isn't it?
Yeah.
Here we are with this dude, right? He had a really nice car dealership. His dad gave it to him in his inheritance, so, probably a dude with just a lot going for him, right? Then he started to drink, got violent, and then he lost the dealership, right? And then so the people in AA, they do what they do, and they presented this program of recovery to him. It was at the very beginning, right? And what did he say? He said, thanks, but no thanks, right? Says he made a beginning. So obviously some stuff was presented to him. A lot of people think maybe the first step or two was presented to him, right? And then he does what I've did for 14 years and still do today in my mind. I start the program, I start doing good, and then I think, you know what? I got this. I got this. How many of y'all said I got this before? And then went out and got drunk or high or something. I'm not going to get with him again. Don't worry about it. It's not going to happen. I got this. He's done. I've erased him from my phone. I'm never going to call him again. Right. Got it memorized right here. Can't erase it from here, right? I got this. So that was his movie, right? That's what he'd experienced in his life. I got this. And then so when he's got this kind of mentality of, you know what, I'm a good salesman. I can handle things on my own. I really don't need anybody's help. I've been a successful dude. I had a car dealership. I'm going to go in here. I'm going to eat a sandwich. I've been there 100 times before. I'm going to drink a glass of milk. And then all of a sudden, I'm going to have a second sandwich and a second glass of milk. My stomach is full. And then all of a sudden, wow, wouldn't a whiskey be great with this milk right now? I got this. I don't need any help. I've got this on my own. Those are the kind of things, the mistakes that I make when I have it on my own. Put whiskey in milk. Right? So that was his mind, okay? So he's got the mind and the heart, the emotions. We've talked about that, right? Then our awareness is around us, right? So because he only made the beginning, his mind, he didn't progress anywhere in his self-knowledge or in his faith at all, did he? He made a beginning, but I got this, right? So when his mind, when that energy went out, whiskey and milk would be good. He didn't have a defense against it. And then all of a sudden, his emotion, he began to feel. When we think a thought, we have an energetic charge within us, don't we? We have an emotion when we think. So all of a sudden, he's in his mind and his body. I'm going to have some whiskey with the milk, and he had no defense. All of a sudden, it tasted great. So you see, he hadn't been able to get the help that he needed to have this sense of awareness of what was going on in his life, because I got it. I don't need any help. All right? I've done that so many times in my recovery. Well, before my sobriety date, I did it many times out there. Do the Texas 3 or 4 step, kind of come in, do a couple of steps, 3 or 4, and then get out and go back out there. I come in, my hair's on fire. I'll do anything to stay sober. Actually, I'll do anything to get my wife off my butt. That's the true reason I'm in there, right? I'll do anything to keep my job. It's not that I'm going to stay sober. I'll just do anything to get it quiet at home. And all of a sudden, I get a little bit of going for me, and it's quiet at home. Boom, right back out. Right? So, to tell you how I related this in my world this week, because I had a milestone, kind of, for me anyway. You all will probably laugh. But has anybody in here had an MRI? Raise your hand if you had an MRI. Isn't it just like the roomiest thing you've ever been in? I mean, you ever thought about being buried alive, right? I think I would have more room in a coffin than I have in an MRI machine, right? So over my life, I've had a number of MRIs. If I remember, like 10 or 12 MRIs, right? I have not had one MRI in my life where I was either not unmedically on drugs or medically on drugs when I went into that machine. I mean, it's like that big around, right? Maybe. No, it's that big around, actually, right? So the times that I had, one time I went in and I was somewhat sober. I made them pull me out immediately, and they almost they called security on me because I was screaming and hollering at them so much, I need drugs before I go back in there. Right? I couldn't move. I'm a big dude, right? And my shoulders are like this, and it's like right there on my face, right? And of course, I'm sitting there staring at it with my eyes wide open. So then when I got sober, I've had 3 since I've been sober. So I've had 3 MRIs since I've been sober. However, people took me there. I did everything by the book, right? So I was able to get these MRIs done. So, got a couple, if you notice, my shoulder's not acting right? So the dude that did the surgery on my hand, he goes, let me do an MRI on your shoulder. And I go, can you do a big one, in the big ones? He goes, sure. So I make the appointment, and they go, we don't have a big one. You got to go in the small one. This is a hospital. It's BSA hospital. You tell me you don't have the big one? They say, no, it's not going to work. The doctor orders something that only the small one will work on, right? So you know what? I'm like, you know what? I teach this stuff on Monday nights about changing movies. I'm going to change my movie. Because my first thought was panic, anxiety, and security guards, right? That's my first thought. That's my movie that I went back to, right? So I'm thinking, I teach this movie stuff, so I'm going to put it to practice. So I told her, I said, hey, no big deal. I'll take the small one. I'm going to create a new movie. No big deal at all, right? So I'm just twiddling like the little boy whistling in fear. Doody, no problem, no problem. Not thinking about it, because if I think about it, what happens? I give it energy, right? And so even if I think positively about it, I'm still giving the negative energy because I'm trying to overcome the negative with the positive. So for a couple of days, I tried to visualize everything going really smooth, which was cool, but then I realized my motive was because I was in fear. So the fear was still getting the power. You follow me? So it's like, well, that's the wrong motive because I'm afraid, right? So I think I'm just not going to think about it. And I didn't. And then so just going along, the appointment was last Tuesday night at 6 o'clock, right? So no, I'm not going to be able to eat supper, so I have a late lunch. So I say, Steph, let's go to lunch. So we met for lunch about 2 o'clock Tuesday afternoon, right? And she goes, you said what to me? You remember?
You want me to go with you?
Yeah,
You
you want me to
okay?
go with you? And I'm like, no. At first I was like, yeah, I want you to go with me, hold my foot, right? But then that's going back to the old way. I wanted to create a pain-free movie here. A movie with no problem at all, no thought at all. I'm just going to go in, they're going to do it, and I'm going to get out, and everything's going to be great, and I'm going to come back and tell you guys a great story. That's what I had thinking in my mind, right? So she goes, you want me to go with you? I go, no. Because if you go with me, I'm giving it energy, right? I'm giving the negative energy, right? No, I got this. I don't need your help. And then, what else did you say?
Oh, let's see.
You said, you look nervous. You sound nervous.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not nervous. I got this. No problem at all. She goes, well, you really sound nervous. What are you talking about? I'm not nervous. Everything's fine. There's no worry at all. I'm doing just fine. There's nothing to be concerned about. I've got this. There's no problem. I'm going to go out. Got my teddy bear with me and everything. I didn't have the teddy bear.
You can borrow mine.
Thank you. I may need to. But I did, you know what? I had my meditation blindfold, right? And so I'm thinking, there's a lot of good energy in this meditation blindfold, so it'll save me too, right? But I'm not even going to think about it. It's just going to go in. It's going to happen. It's going to go out, right? So I had my blindfold to go in there. They put me in the little hospital pants. Kind of look at it. I'm like, yeah, pretty damn small. No. And it was just me and the little lady there. So she goes, you all right? And I said, yeah, I'm fine. No problem at all. Just let's do this. She goes, okay. I lay down. They bring the bed up. And I got the blindfold on. They start. And then they give you this little pump thing, a little panic button. You squeeze it if you want to get the hell out of there. Right? So they build me up, roll me in. Of course, I'm going head first. And it's like 82 feet long in my mind. So they're wheeling me in. And I'm thinking, wow, it's pretty roomy. Then all of a sudden, I get into that part, and it's like, whoosh. I'm like this, my arms are like this, and I'm squeezing this thing. Get me the hell out of there! Get me the hell out of there! And just like that, she whipped me in, and then I got right back out. And it was like everything that I thought I had it. I thought I had it, and I didn't. And I tell you what, when she pulled me out, I just was bent over like this, and I just had the most horrible feeling of defeat ever. It took me right back to my addiction, right back to that feeling of being a loser, of being no good. I'm thinking, what the hell's all this recovery stuff for? It doesn't work. I thought I had it, and I don't. I got to tell Stephanie I'm a chicken, you know what? I can't handle this. I'm a loser. I'm a total 100% loser. I go back and tell these ladies Monday night, hey, movie stuff don't work, I'm a loser, right? Those are the thoughts that are going through my mind, right? Those thoughts go through my mind, and then all of a sudden it goes down in here, and we know whether you know that feeling, right? I mean, just 120% defeat. I felt horrible. I'm like, what do I do? Pray? Yeah. So I'm like, you know what? I have a solution to this. There's some simple things that I can remember that I can do. So the ignoring it didn't work, right? So I had to say, okay, let's bless this thing and let's do it. So because it was my left shoulder, they had this little box thing over my arm. and so they can get really close thing on it, right? And so I'm a wide guy, and I'm in there. So I'm like, okay. So she goes, put this arm over like this and kind of slide up on the wall like this. So I'm like, okay, I can do this. So she reels me back in, and what I start doing at this point in time was something so complicated. You guys may have to write this down. It was so complicated that I can't even believe I remembered to do this. Breathe. Breathe. Breathe in to the count of 4, count to 4 and hold it, and breathe out to the count of 4. Breathe into the count of 4, hold it to the count of 4, breathe out to the count of 4. Everything was in 4s, and just breathe. I've said that so many times, but I forgot because I had it, right? She takes me back in there. I mean, I'm jazzed a little bit now, right? So I just immediately start breathing, focusing on the breath with my physical body, the emotion part, and then the mind. I'm counting. So I'm not thinking about the past. I'm rewriting a new script. She rolls me in. I'm doing okay for about 25 seconds. And then she pulls me out. I'm like, what the what? What's going on? I mean, I'm doing good. She goes, yeah, you're doing great, but you're too big for the machine. What the hell? She goes, because this box thing on my shoulder can't touch the side of the machine. And I'm in my mind, this is what I'm thinking, well, hell, I've already paid $251 deductible. It came out of my checking account. How am I going to get that money back? You know, that's where I went, right? I don't want to reschedule this. She goes, unless you like roll way up on the side, you know, where I'm kind of vertical, and that box does not touch the side of the cylinder, it's not going to work. So I have to take this arm, hold it over here, pull this arm up like this, and so I'm crossed up like this on the side. Can I even count to 4 now? How do I get to 4? I forgot how to count to 4, right? Huh? No. So she reels me back in, and I'm like this for 40 minutes in there with my blindfold on. And all I did was breathe to 4, counting to 4. So my attention was on the number 4. My body was doing the 4. And then all of a sudden, you know how loud it is in those things, right? I started kind of getting into the beat of the music, kind of sounded like shamanic meditating music, right? So I started kind of digging it in there, listening to the music, breathing to the count of 4, right? And then the next thing you know, pulled me out and said, everything's great, right? So the lesson that I got out of this was I can't just pretend like I got it just because I say I got it. It takes a little effort on my part, a little remembering of the things that we talk about, the simple things, because I'm this consciousness, but when I immediately went back to the old movie, my body reacted in fear. My mind was going very full of anxiety, then my body started reacting, and then I started get me the hell out of here, right? So isn't that kind of what we do in drugs? It's just an immediate reaction. I can't handle this feeling. What I got to do to get out of this feeling? And then the race is on to call the dealer or to go to the store when I shouldn't be going to the store or doing whatever it is we do, right? It's just instantaneous. That's what we do. So that's how the mind tricks us. Just like Jim in the milk. He had it. He didn't need any help, right? All of a sudden, whiskey and milk sounds good. I had it. I don't need any help. And all of a sudden, she's taking me out of the machine. But I just simply went to the breath and the counting. And all of a sudden, Tolbert, became aware of my body sitting in there, breathing. And everything was okay. Because they do hundreds of those in a week, right? So it's really not anything dangerous, but it's what I created in my mind. So this movie, just because I got up and walked out, it took some steps for me to get up and an effort to open the door and get out of the movie, meaning that when it happened, I had to remember to do the simple stuff. breathe, count to 4. How hard is that? Right? And it literally, I have a whole new movie now. A whole new movie that I totally believe in. I don't have to pretend like, oh, it's not going to be a big deal or whatever. It was a big deal. But the lesson that I learned out of that, and now it's an experience that I've had, right? So it's like when you do the steps and you talk to somebody else about a resentment and you get some relief from that resentment, it's not just something, some words on a page. You fleshed it out. You've lived it, right? So you know it works, right? So now I know that the simple breath works. Guess what I had Friday on my lower back? Another MRI. I'm falling apart. Now I work for the state of Texas. They can fix me, right? So I had another MRI on my lower back. This time, it's not that I had it, but I had some success to go back on. So I remembered the movie, the fear, and then I remembered, oh, this is what I did when that fear came up, when that anxiety came up, right? It went just as smooth as could be. I mean, I just put the blindfold, but actually I didn't put the blindfold on, but they had me listening to rock music. And I really didn't want to listen to rock music. I'd rather kind of be listening to the noise and whatever. But went in, this went along 20 minutes later, out. But I was remembering my breath. I was remembering the counting. So I have something to fall back on now, right? So when a moment of anxiety comes to me, I know that there's a solution because I have experience with it. This is my new movie. And this is something that each one of us in this room can create when we have those moments. But the point is that when we think we have it, that's when I need to get to work. When I have that voice, I think I have it, that's when I need to talk to somebody about what I think I have. Because when I flesh it out, I realize I might not have it. Right? I need some help. And thinking about what I'd done in the past, listening to other people, it gave me a solution in there. That's on the firing line. You know, I need to ask before I get into the firing line. So that's the big lesson. You got something you want to add to that? Was there something?
I guess I'm gonna.
I know you do.
I know. Last week we were talking about, and he just hit on it. What's our biggest enemy? We forget. We forget. Even him, like he's been doing this a minute, right? And what he did, he forgot in that moment what he needed to do. But thank goodness it came to him. Thank goodness he paused and he did exactly what he needed to do, which was to get that intuitive thought, right? And that's the same thing for us. And I say this a lot. I forget all the time. I forget sometimes to pray. I forget sometimes who I am. I forget a lot of things. Sometimes I forget he loves me, Sometimes I forget if he's not acting appropriately, how I think he should be acting, that he doesn't love me. Is that the truth? No. That's the false, right? Because at the end of the day, I know that, but sometimes I forget. I have to be reminded. And we all have to be reminded of something sometimes, right? If we could remember it all the time, we'd be just rocking along perfect. But isn't that why we need each other? We need each other. He needed some encouragement. He needed some love to get through that. He needed, it was so funny. No, I got this. I'm all right. I'm good. He was talking so fast and so short. I'm like, okay, dude, whatever you say. So what did I do? I just prayed for him. I blessed him. I encouraged him. And sometimes that's all we can do. And at the end of the day, I knew that he did have it. He didn't have what he thought he had, but he had all the tools. He had all the tools that he needed. And it's funny because we go back and forth all week long about this stuff, and we'll go back and say, and he says all the time, forget it, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. And he knows it does. He knows it does. But doesn't it feel like that sometimes? Doesn't it feel, I mean, isn't that the God's honest truth? Like sometimes it feels like, forget it. Why am I doing this? Man, this is hard. Ugh. Um, but when we do it anyway, y'all, I didn't want to be here tonight. I didn't. I wanted to be at home in bed, but I'm glad I came, and I'm glad I didn't follow my feelings. Because when I follow my feelings can be wrong. Because my feelings can be, he doesn't love me. And if I follow that, then what? I'm creating distance. My feelings can be, oh, this doesn't work. What's the point? Why bother? And if I do that, then I don't show up. So so for me, I've got to learn to follow the action. I've got to learn to do the action that I know that works and not just follow the feelings. Because the feelings can lead me wrong time and time and time again. Because I forget. I forget. So that's all I wanted to say. That's all I got.
Perfect. How do we do this on a daily basis on the little things in our life? I just kind of told you a big story, right? But don't you come across those incidents in today, if it's just getting on the phone when I feel like I have to do this right now? You ever get that? I have to make that call right now. I have to do what I want to do right now. There is no pausing, there's no discussion. It's I have to do it right now, right? And then it's in those moments that I got to stop and pause. The big book talks about when we get in those moments in the 10th step that we pause when agitated and collect ourselves and simply breathe, right? I run across guys all the time in my day that they come to me. You got to remember the world of these men, it's a pretty small world, right? So for them, something very minuscule to me is a really big deal to them because it's their world. And so we're always stopping and taking a breath, looking at one another, looking at me like I'm crazy, looking at one another and saying, let's just take a deep breath and let's get centered right here, right now. Because remember, where I put my attention is where my energy goes, right? Where I put my attention, where I put my thoughts, my energy, my body follows right along with it. So if I'm putting my energy and my thoughts into yesterday's movie, right, then I'm going to experience what I experienced yesterday, right? Even in the meditations that I do, because sometimes I'll have a great meditation, like today, and then tomorrow I'll want to do what I did today so that I get what I got today. Where's the newness in that? I had a great experience this morning. Bless it. And then look forward to another wonderful experience tomorrow morning. Not doing exactly what I did today, right? But seeing what is presented to me tomorrow. Does that make sense? Because the book says we cannot rest on our what? Laurels. I can't rest on what I did. I have direction of where I need to go. But as I go in that direction, let's be aware of what's being presented to me today. Okay? And enjoy. Come on in. Welcome back. You all right?
Keep coming back.
And be in the moment that we're experiencing right now so that we can be present with it. Because again, think about how many times we go back to what happened yesterday or what she said or what he said or what they did. I can't believe they did that, right? And that's where our mind's going. As soon as I go there, my energy's right there. My blood pressure goes up, my breathing gets shallow, and I'm mad. Right? It happens all the time in our day, right? Or I start thinking about, man, how's this going to happen? I can't see how this job's going to fall into place. I can't see how this bill's going to get paid. I can't see how this relationship's going to work out. I can't see how my sobriety's going to work out. I can't see talking to my sponsor about this. And now all of a sudden I'm thinking about tomorrow. And then when I'm thinking about something I don't have or that I'm going to lose, what happens in here? I get anxiety. I get in fear. Right? So that's what the breathing does. It brings me back to this moment and everything is okay. We're all okay. Okay?
Okay.
Anybody have anything you want to add to that?
I hope I can articulate this well because it just happened. Um, but over the last, week and a half, something like that. Anyway, a long while, I've been job searching. I graduated out of IOP and immediately started looking for a job. Looked a month and a half, couple of months, and had 2 interviews, which is discouraging. But I had a great interview with a company. May I name it?
I wouldn't.
No? Okay, with a company. And the job was being an administrative assistant for a region. So I work in the main office of this place, making sure nurses and etc. had what they need. So it was a service industry for me. And I was offered the position after 3 interviews with them and accepted the position, signed the letter. Then I talked to my direct boss who had been involved in the flood, so she was knee deep in water, and she's the last one I talked to, and found out that the job would require me to travel to Houston for 2 days for a training. Well, y'all know in this program, no can do. And I was so anxious about getting work. I, felt like the needy person. I've maxed my family out. My sister's my person. She's having 2 brain surgeries this month and next month. I can't ask for another thing. I got to support myself. So I was just, this job, I need this job. It pays well. I've got to have it, And so I was literally agonizing for days in tears. The house had to put up with me, even though they all didn't know necessarily what was going on, because it's like, I need to choose. Do I make a choice between this job or the program? I felt good in my sobriety and believed in myself, but I would not be getting this position without the Downtown Women's Center, without the Haven. And so I was just agonizing. I met with everyone. I have 2 sponsors, met with both of them. I have a life coach, met with her, met with my family, everyone. My last call was to my dad last night, and he's like, don't leave the program.
Wow.
He said, baby, and that's how he says it, don't be like me. And so I thought, well, dang, Dad said it. I got to do it, And but it's been a battle, and I knew I couldn't leave the women, and that's what I was agonizing over. Try not to cry. I just couldn't, and I couldn't leave the program. And though I felt strong in myself, I did not want to put my sobriety at stake, and that ended up being the bottom line, not the job. So I made that decision, and this all happened literally in quick succession the last couple of days. So this morning I said, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell my story. This is exactly why I can't go to Houston, because I'm very selective about who I trust with my story. And after talking to wise women, I just said, all right, I'm going to tell them, let them know, lay it bare. That's it. I've done everything I can do. And just not be ashamed of it. It is what it is. Take me or leave me. But it took me a lot of struggle to get there. So I let them know. I sent an email requesting a WebEx meeting of the 2 regional directors I had interviewed with, as well as my supervisor, who I hoped would be my boss locally. And I texted her as well to give her a heads up, and she called me. And so she said, what is up? And I said, well, here we go. I just laid it out. I'm in recovery. I tried everything I could to go to this training, and it is just a no-go. I can't. And that is why I can't go to Houston. I'm choosing, I need to be in my program. And she said, well, let me tell you something. I am in recovery as well. And my sobriety date was something in 2020. And she said, you know, she's goes to the, you know, all the local meetings. I mean, she knew exactly what I was talking about when I didn't lead off with that. I didn't want to be labeled or underestimated in what I could do. And she understood every bit of that. And she said, this training is not my decision. Let me call so-and-so, who's the big guy. And so she called him. He was disappointed that I didn't lead off with my story. But he said, I will leave the decision about the training up to you. And she said, Faith, I excuse you from the training. So, like someone told me, in standing in my truth and truly surrendering to God, saying, I've got to have my sobriety. I've got to be with the only family and community I know in this town. And just spoke it, and God did it.
Amen.
Look at God. Look at God. So, stand in your truth. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Wow. That's an amazing story. Thank you for sharing. And I have absolutely nothing to add to that. So shall we circle it up? That's amazing. Congratulations.